no idea if technologically, if any of this is working. There we go. Now I'm up. I'm going to, this is a bit of a trial and error thing that we're doing here. Twitch says I'm live, so I'm assuming everyone can hear me. I think I'm also live on YouTube and Twitter right now. But basically just going live here for like 15, 20 minutes, something like that. Talking a little hockey. It was a busy day today around Edmonton and with the Oilers around the NHL. It's also fantasy hockey season, so going to be talking a little bit about that today. We were talking to Brody from Owner's Box, which if you haven't heard is our new partner on Oilersnation. And he gave some good fantasy advice on real life if you missed it. Oilersnation Radio on Friday as well. So I'm going to talk a little bit about fantasy hockey. I have a big draft tonight as well. If you're on Twitter, first off, I just hope this is working on Twitter. Should be live on Oilersnation. And excuse me as I'm a little quiet here for the first few seconds. I'm just double checking that it actually is live. I have no clue. Oh, it is. Look at that. We are live on Twitter, live on Twitch, live on YouTube at the same time. Technology. It is beautiful. I'm actually so happy this worked out. Have you started watching our State of the Nation streams, which we do every Tuesday on Twitch previously and now on Twitter and YouTube live as well? If you watched those previously, the first 2 weeks of them were just an absolute mess. A straight up mess. We couldn't get mics working, all that stuff. Because of that, you have no idea how happy I am that this first round of streams on Twitter worked out. This is great stuff. Also, I'm out of breath because I ran up the stairs before doing this, so you should never run to a hot mic. That's like lesson 1 in broadcasting school. But I want to dig into a few of the big storylines going around right now. And going to start with Oscar Klefbom. And that one was real interesting to me for a handful of reasons. I mean, obviously the news he's out for the year. That's nothing now. We've known that for, 4 months since before free agency started. Obviously a big reason why they were able to go get Tyson Barrie in the offseason. But today, nothing entirely unexpected, I should say. But it sounds like this might even be longer than 1 year if I'm trying to read between the lines a little bit. And that's what concerns me a little bit as well. If you're just hopping onto the stream, welcome. If you're on Twitch, that's where I have the chat line open right now. So if you want to say something, if you want to ask some questions, fantasy hockey, sports betting, Oilers betting specifically for the upcoming season, let me know in the chat on Twitch, because that's the one I have open. I don't have Twitter's chat open. I don't know if I can even do that right now while I have Twitch open. But with Klefbom, like Gregor today on TSN 1260 when he was on with Low Tide, obviously I was listening to that conversation. He kind of made it seem, he said that, he wonders if this continues to linger, will they maybe not protect him in the expansion draft? And that's going to be interesting as well, because one, would the Oilers protect him, a hurt Oscar Klefbom, who they don't know, maybe he won't even be ready for the start of next season. Do they protect him over someone like Caleb Jones, who's on a great contract, good young defenseman? We'll obviously see how this year plays out. Like, there is a chance that Caleb Jones takes another step forward and this conversation gets even more complicated, but would the Oilers leave Klefbom unprotected? And two, would Seattle take Klefbom? Because a new franchise probably isn't going to want to take on a $4.1 million contract if they don't think the guy's going to play for their first season. There's really, the LTIR, I guess, but a team that's starting from scratch really shouldn't need the LTIR space. So the Klefbom thing just really got me thinking for more down the line, sort of what this team could look like and what the blue line could look like. Shout out to Nico Jolly in the chat. Hey, Tyler, any idea if Steve Kazari is reffing in the North Division? That was the first thing. When I heard that it was going to be refs with that Canadian division, it's going to be the same ones kind of over and over again, and teams might have the same refs for like a 3-4 game stretch. Straight up, the first thing I thought was this fan base is going to lose their collective minds if it is Steve Kazari reffing. If you don't know the story behind Steve Kazari, I'm trying to think who wrote it. It might have been Nation Dan, it might have been Zach Lang, but someone wrote like a piece on Oilers Nation about how the calls go when Steve Kazari refs Oilers games. He's the one who Connor famously told to check upstairs. If you don't have that shirt as well, that'd be great. That was a great piece of Nation gear as well. The Squire J, over under 103 points from Leon Draisaitl this year. Go back and listen to Real Life. If you're watching this, go listen to Real Life. We did our predictions episode today. Wanye said he thinks Leon Draisaitl is going to get 103 points, which is wild. Until you dig into his logic, which was he took 29, added 97, Sure, makes sense. And then subtracted 23, which is my age, which also doesn't make a ton of sense. But Wanyas is 103 points. So, I mean, probably under, to answer your question, Jay. I think I was the lowest on Leon. I had Leon at 69, didn't even have him cracking 70. I think it's hard. It's hard to follow up a career year is kind of my logic with that. And he's going to be on the second line. He's not going to have Nugent Hopkins with him on that second line, at least to start the year. He's going to be up with Connor McDavid. So Draisaitl with Yamamoto and Cahoon, Ennis, like who's going to be on that left side? That's a big question mark as well heading into the season. I think we could see a dip in his even strength production. He'll still score on the power play. They're obviously still going to score on the power play. But, I have a tough time thinking the 5-on-5 scoring is going to be there as much as it was last year for Leon Draisaitl. I had McDavid, by the way, in the high 80s. And honestly, in the article I have coming out tomorrow, like I think you're foolish if you say he isn't going to hit 100 points or it's impossible for him to hit 100 points. Like you can't discount anything with McDavid this year, in my opinion. Jay says, I hate Leon. I don't hate Leon, just maybe not 103 points. The Brad and Avery show commenting, NHL ref logic, being able to give a player a game misconduct after a game is over. Thanks, Steve. That was the other thing, too. Like, McDavid got a 10-minute misconduct for telling a ref to look upstairs. Soft. Kazari's soft and obviously hates Edmonton. Dr_Soup, really happy for Mooner going to 6:30 for play-by-play. Man, I mean, go on Twitter right now, and you will not see a single bad thing about Cam Moon, who got the call. He's been in Red Deer for like 20 years doing Rebels play-by-play. I've gotten to meet him a few times at the rink doing WHL stuff. And, man, I'm so happy for Cam Moon getting that gig. Happy for Jack as well. This is now also a good time to plug that he was on the Real Life podcast over the summer. Had a good chat with Jack. Honestly, I loved Kevin Quinn's calls. He's been doing it for a long time. He's really, in my life, the only, Oilers play-by-play guy I knew TV-wise. I know you'd have the regional games, and then obviously national games were different. But I love Kevin Quinn, but I'm stoked that Jack Michaels is going to TV. I think that's super cool. And yeah, like you said, Dr. Soup, I'm really happy for Mooner to get a chance to do the 6:30 Ched games. Yeah, it's just awesome. That's all I really have to say is that it's just awesome that Mooner's getting that chance. Wow, we got like almost 50 people watching on Twitter. Just me. And the plan with this is basically, I might do it a little bit on Oilers game days. Hopefully bring in some more people. Like Jay, you're commenting on here. You could have hopped on the stream with me. I can send you the Zoom link if you want to hop in. Zach Gortson, I like Quinn, but I like Michaels a lot more. Jack just has like Kevin Quinn. I mean, the overtime calls are iconic with Quinn. But Jack, his energy is just on another level, and I'm hoping he keeps it up on TV. Womp TV, Miss Roddy Phillips. Yeah, I never got a lot of Rod Phillips in my life. Like, I'm trying to think his last year. Yeah, like I did get some Rod Phillips, but none that I like really remember. Like, I don't have a Rod Phillips goal call that's like stuck in my brain or anything like that. I was too little to really remember it. Obviously, Jack Michaels is the first radio voice that like I really, really got to know, I guess. And I like Jack Michaels' call. I think at first there was a lot of people like, oh, he's an American, blah, 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 blah. But once you actually sit down and listen to the dude's call, and his story of how he got here is impressive as well. Like up in Alaska and all that, he did so many ECHL games as well. And that's kind of all I got to say on the broadcast duo. I'm happy for both of them. I think the Oilers make great decisions on this as well. The news that came out earlier this morning, Jujhar Khaira put on waivers, and that one caught me a little bit off guard. Eventually, like listening to Hart from Puckpedia, which is a great website that you should have bookmarked for the upcoming hockey season. You can see the logic in this, and I wonder if it leads to Shore getting a contract as well, especially like if Khaira gets claimed, they have to sign Shore. I think they're going to sign him anyways and probably put him on the taxi squad, or maybe they're playing him now. I mean, who knows? The Khaira thing. He's just one of those players that's always left me wanting more. And I think a lot of Oilers fans are going to agree with me on that. I think it's kind of like a consensus feeling on Khaira. It's that, when his feet are moving and he really gets going, the physical game follows with that. The offensive chances come from it because he's forcing turnovers. I thought his line with James Neal in the playoff or in the qualifying round against Chicago, I thought they did some really, really good things as well. But it's the inconsistencies that'll kill you. And if he showed up to camp looking a little bit slow, I don't at all blame the Oilers for putting him on waivers and trying to, a big part of this is the cap ramifications too. They're trying to find a way to maximize their new LTIR or the LTIR space they're going to get from Oscar Klefbom. That's huge. Hart from Puckpedia can explain it much better than I can because honestly, I'm not that good with those sort of ins and outs of the salary cap and everything. But yeah, I think the Kara move, it caught me a little bit off guard, but as you dig into it more, you kind of go, yeah, I can understand how it kind of got to this point. With that being said, I think he clears. Like, you look around, like, Derek Ryan's on waivers in Calgary. You're telling me that there's a team out there, I mean, the cap hits are totally different. It's like $2 million less to take Kara. But if you're a team who's looking to add a centerman, why would you not make it work for Derek Ryan? Right? Like, he's a better player than Jujhar Khaira. And I think there's a chance both of them slip through waivers. But I think every team kind of has one or two Jujhar Khairas on their roster, Oilers included. And I just don't see a team sticking their neck out and paying him $1.2 million for the rest of the season. Stealth Legends 93, Khaira is good, but we need scorers on the ice. I'll fight back with that a little bit, just because, I mean, the Turris Puljujarvi combo will be interesting, but if that works out with whoever on the left side, there's a chance they have 3 legitimate scoring lines this season, and that fourth line can almost be a bit of a specialty line. Even if it's Khaira centering it, and his only job is to play 4 even strength minutes a game and kill penalties, if his wingers down there, when healthy, are Archibald and Neal, then I think there's a chance that that line is almost just used to get Connor McDavid on the ice more. You know, double shifting McDavid. You come out of a power, or you come out of a penalty kill, and you throw Khaira, Archibald, McDavid out there, and you go, right? Especially if Nuge is being used to kill penalties. It could just be used as an opportunity to get McDavid on the ice more, and Khaira or Shore, I guess, are only in the lineup really to kill penalties. So, again, I agree. Like, you need some score. Yeah, you want scores everywhere, but there is a spot on a roster like the Oilers where they have so much high-end offense. There's a spot for a penalty kill specialist like Khaira. I'm surprised to see Perry on waivers. Yeah, they didn't want to lose Mete, or Victor Mete. They didn't want to lose him on the blue line. They lost Juleson to Florida, which I follow a couple Habs fans on Twitter. They weren't entirely stoked about. But they didn't want to lose Juleson. And with Perry, like, every team could have had him 3 weeks ago if they would have offered enough money, right? So I can't see Corey Perry getting claimed either. I definitely don't see Michael Frolik getting claimed. I don't even know why the Habs signed him. I'm not a big Frolik guy. But yeah, I don't think Perry's going to get claimed. I honestly don't think we'll see a lot of claims. I think a lot of teams, especially with the flat cap, don't have flexibility. And at this point in camp, like, if you're going to bring in a guy, you now also need to get rid of a guy who you would, assuming you liked. If you kept him this long, if you went out and got a guy in the offseason or something like that, like, a lot of teams kind of know what they're dealing with in their own organization, and bringing in a guy on waivers who's, you know, probably barely above replacement level, I don't know if that's something they want to do. I would find, Stealth the Legends, I would find a way to get Perry. Again, where are you going to put him in this lineup? I wouldn't play, like, is he that much better than James Neal? No. So it's not worth the roster spot. He's not better. He's not going to bring something that much different than Josh Archibald to your fourth line. Again, I'm not saying Perry's a worse player or anything like that, but I think there's something there that you don't need to disrupt your roster. You don't need to go bring in a guy like Perry when he's not, like, head and shoulders better than the other options in your bottom six. Like, he's a fourth line player on this team. So I wouldn't be moving anything to go get Corey Perry on waivers. Brad and Avery, Corey Perry, someone you'll be seeing on a Spengler Cup squad the way things are going. Well, when will we ever get another Spengler Cup? Damn. But yeah, like, again, Perry he was really good in the playoffs for Dallas. He was okay in the regular season. But again, he's a veteran guy. Like, father time beats all. And eventually Corey Perry just won't be useful anymore. And I would rather see a guy like Archibald on this team. You're stuck with Neal, so there's no point in going out and trying to get a player that's that much better than James Neal. So yeah, I just don't think it's really worth it. Matthew Perreault surprised me a little bit in Winnipeg. That was a guy who, like, a year ago, I was saying, you know, the Jets needed a D-man. The Oilers could have benefited from a centerman. I would have loved to see, like, a Russell for Perreault swap. I thought that would have been interesting. But I mean, now he's on waivers. And again, he's making like $4 million. There's no team that can just sort of, like, snap their fingers and find a way to bring in a guy like Matthew Perreault. Like, to squeeze him in like that, it's just going to be too difficult. Tyler Johnson's the big one, right? Tyler Johnson's making $5 million. And yeah, no team wants to go help out the Tampa Bay Lightning, but, like, you go to Puckpedia and look at who has money. If you're a team like Nashville, why do you not just take Tyler Johnson? One, you know that Seattle's probably going to take him off your hands in the expansion draft. He's from that area. Good middle six winger or centerman, he can play the wing as well. If you're one of those teams who has playoff aspirations or Stanley Cup aspirations this year, why do you not take the chance on $5 million for Tyler Johnson? There aren't a lot of teams that could make it work. I understand that. But even like I'm looking at that West Division, and I mean, they're a bad team, in my opinion, is going to make the playoffs there. Vegas, St. Louis, Colorado, they're locks. I'm not high on Arizona. I'm not high on LA. I'm not high on Minnie. I don't like San Jose, and I don't really like Anaheim that much. But one of those teams is going to make the playoffs this year. So if you're one of those teams and you see a guy like Tyler Johnson on waivers right now and you can make the money work, I mean, that might be a move that helps you make the playoffs here. Other than that, though, not a lot of teams around the league that can really afford him. That was kind of it for the waivers. Nick Holden out in Vegas, a local guy, he was thrown on waivers as well. Stealth the Legends. Shan going to the Sabres is sad. But the Oilers have, like, Riley Shan, PK specialist. Okay, well, you have Kara. If you don't have Kara, go ahead, sign Shore off his PTO. You know, put Haas in the lineup once he's healthy and is eligible to be put back in the lineup. Just so many different ways you could go with that. Boy, when it's just me, it is hard to mix in a water break, eh? It's basically just silence if I want to have a sip of water. Other than that, I'm just talking straight. Shout out to everyone tuning in on Twitter, Twitch. Again, the plan throughout the year is to have other voices on here, so it's not just me babbling. I basically just wanted to test out the technology because tomorrow on these same platforms, Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube Live, we're going to be doing a live fantasy draft with our friends at Owner's Box. And if you haven't checked out Owner's Box yet, go right ahead. Just Google Owner's Box. That's what I've been doing. I don't have it bookmarked yet, which is a huge mistake on me. But it's basically a hybrid between daily fantasy sports and like a fantasy draft that you would have, like a year-long fantasy draft, right? Ownersbox.com, WFS, weekly fantasy sports. And from talking with Brody from Owner's Box, what I'm getting here is they basically combine the best parts of a year-long fantasy draft and the best parts of daily fantasy, where you know, you get the draft, you skip the regular season, you basically go straight to the playoffs. That's what it is. It's really cool. Again, like DraftKings and all that is good, but the problem I always have with it is it's too random for hockey. Like a one-game sample size in the NHL, you can load up a lineup with, you know, you can get McDavid, Nugent Hopkins, jam them into a DraftKings lineup. You can put some good demon in. You can pick great players and have a great lineup, but they just happen to have an off night and you're screwed and there's nothing you can do about it. There's just too much randomness in DFS for me. This, I think it rewards sharp players. And I'm excited tomorrow to do a draft. It's going to be myself, Nation Dan, Josh Park, and Rick from the Pint, who you all know from Oilersnation Radio. So basically, you draft a team. If it's a two-man league, you play 1 week against each other. Whoever wins that week head-to-head in fantasy, they get the money. You can pick how much you pay too. It can be 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 50, whatever you want. If you're doing like a 4-team league, then it's, 2 weeks. You get the first matchup, then the finals. If it's 8 teams, then you get it, right? 8, 4, 2, and then there's a winner. Anyways, it's really cool. But the big debate for me, and I'm waiting for the draft room to open up for another draft I have tonight on there. Picking third is a real tough spot for me this year. There's like, for me, it's McDavid, McKinnon are 1-2. And I don't, Brody from Owner's Box kind of brought up, he said he would look at Draisaitl at 2. I wouldn't look at Draisaitl at second overall. I have McDavid at 1. I have McKinnon at 2. And that's the end of that tier for me. After that, you get that next sort of layer. And Matthews at 3 is where I'd go. But you can go Matthews. You can go Draisaitl. No one's really talking about Artemi Panarin, who was great last season. No one's talking about Panarin that much. So I think you could go Panarin at 3. And I don't think you'd be raising too many eyebrows. I think there's something to be said about Jack Eichel getting a chance to play with Victor Olofsson and Taylor Hall this year. That's going to be a good line. They should get a lot of power play points as well. Alex Ovechkin, if you're in a league that values hits as well and gives the extra points for power play points, Alex Ovechkin at 3, I don't think you're absolutely insane. You can go so far down the list in that next tier after McDavid and McKinnon that 3 is a bad spot to pick in your drafts this year. If you're in a 12-man league, I honestly think 6 is the best spot to be. Because you're not, or I shouldn't say that. 1 or 2 are great because you're getting McDavid or McKinnon. But after that, I wouldn't want to pick 2. I wouldn't want to pick 3, 4, 5. I'd want to pick 6 and just get, Eichel at 6. And then you pick earlier in the second round if it's a snake draft. I just think at 3, there's so many good options. There's so many good forwards. And when I brought that up to Brody, he kind of said, if you're picking late in the first round, there's so many good forwards this year that, maybe you take a forward in the first round, but maybe in that second round, you jump early on a D-man. Depending on what your league is, like if it's categories, and again, if it rewards for hits and blocked shots, I think Yossi's probably the best option. If there's another player out, if you're just straight up points, maybe you look at a guy like Cale Makar a little bit earlier than you would, because again, I just think there are so many good quality options for forwards that you can go deep. I did my yearly keeper draft I did last night. First of all, fantasy hockey nerds, you're going to love this. It's a keeper league. It started last year. So last year was year one. And first pick, I picked McDavid. Good. I know I'm going to have him. It's a keeper league. This year, you get to keep 3 players. Someone in the league didn't keep Sidney Crosby. Makes no sense. Of course, I came second last year. Brutal year. Sold off at the deadline, though. I picked second overall. First overall took Pettersson, so I got Crosby at 2. So my fantasy roster this year, and it's a it's categories. So you get points for face-offs, shots, block shots, everything. I got McDavid, I got Crosby to go along with Yossi and Marner. I'm stacked. Anyways, I wanted to brag about that a little bit. Dangerous weight. I think goals per game this year will be insane to start. It could. I mean, it's you could see both sides of it in a way. Like, could teams just be sloppy off the start and it results in a ton of goals? Absolutely, it could. Could it be the other way where teams are just playing cautious, playing safe? No one wants to make a mistake early. A lot of just getting pucks deep. Could certainly be that as well, but I'd love it if we're off the bat here, especially in the Canadian division. If we get some old school shootouts where it's 6-5, 6-4, why not? Make it more fun. But back to fantasy. Eichel's the guy in the first round that I'm kind of circling as, right now he's in, like I said, that sort of third tier. I think by the end of this year, man, Jack Eichel, he's not going to be in the conversation with McKinnon and McDavid, but I think the conversation could be there from a fantasy perspective that maybe he is. And he's going to get a chance to succeed with some really, really skilled players in Buffalo this year. That like Dahlin as well, their power play. Their power play is should be, based on what they have on paper, should be like top 5 in the league. I know Jay's a big Jeff Skinner fan as well. I'm not as high on Jeff Skinner, but I'm only going to go a couple more minutes here. But I wanted to look up over the last 2 years, like how many points Jack Eichel has. Because, I mean, even you look at last year, which, I mean, by no means was a great year for Eichel. Not sure, I should say, for the Sabres. But he had 78 points in 68 games. He finished 10th in scoring. And who do you have to help him? Like, he didn't play a ton with Skinner. They got broken up at points last season. This year with Hall, man, I think Eichel's just going to have a monster year. I think Matthews as well. I think he'd be a really, really good pick at 3. I wouldn't take Draisaitl over him. I think Matthews is just going to score so much this season. But if you go back over the last 3 years, Eichel's played 212 games. He's got 224 points. He's a lock to be point a game. Brad and Avery, I'm still choked knowing Skinner went to Buffalo. Could have come to Edmonton. I don't know. Again, that's a guy who, like, he's good, I guess, when you play him on a skilled line, and that's what he'd be doing here in Edmonton. But I'm not the biggest Jeff Skinner fan in the world. Anyways, that's what you have to look forward to tomorrow. If you want to hop in on our stream, we're going to be doing it's not even a mock draft. It's for a prize, but it's myself, Josh Park, Nation Dan, Rick from the Pint. It'll be a ton of fun. On these same platforms as well. We'll be on Twitch. We'll be on Twitter. We'll be on YouTube Live as well. I'm going to wrap this up. It's getting dark. Like, my ring light is the only thing even allowing me to be seen on this screen right now. But I'm going to step aside here. Thanks for tuning in to everyone who hopped in on Twitch, as always. Twitch viewers, love ya. Thanks for the input as well. Thanks for keeping the chat line active. And shout out to the Twitter stream as well. It was at like 50 people at one point, which was fantastic. So thanks for tuning in. I'll do these throughout the year, but also I'll have my pregame podcast coming up. Might start doing my pregame podcast live, actually. That's something I've considered. But anyways, thanks for tuning in. I'm Tyler Yaremchuk. This has been Oilers Nation Live.